Hi guys, this is Creative Cuts, a channel where I build, paint and create things. And today, I'm going to build a nuclear fusion reactor out of cardboard. Firstly, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, and if you like these kind of videos, then hit the like button. All projects have to start somewhere, and when my fiance bought a new sound box, I channeled my inner cat and was more interested in the box that it came in. And just by keeping my eyes open, I found a really cool piece of packaging that was begging to be turned into some tabletop terrain. Simple. You could even say straight out of the box. I wasn't sure at this stage what to do with it, but this was as good a place to start as any. Next, I did what any seasoned terrain builder would do, and that was consult one of my many boxes of collected stuff. All future projects waiting to emerge when the idea strikes. Anything cool that I find, I just throw it in a box and save it for later. I found the inner core of this fake topiary ball was wonderfully over-designed. I originally bought it for the plastic plants to use in dioramas, but if I can also use the rest of the ball, then bonus points all round. What a weird and wonderful object. It was at this stage that an idea started forming in my head. This was perfect to represent the core of my reactor. I had the idea to build a walkway around the structure so it could also be playable. In my head, a walkway seemed like a simple element that I could whip up in no time. Little did I know what was ahead of me. I started with some plastic art. These are styrene sheets, which are nice and sturdy and a great modelling material. I marked out a rough shape as I wanted the walkway to fit under the lip of the cardboard packaging. I didn't have any sheets big enough, so I taped 4 together with some masking tape. I cut out my shape and quickly realised that at this size I would need my walkway to be way more rigid. So I set about reinforcing the styrene with some graphics card. Now already I have used far more materials than necessary here. Had I thought a bit harder before leaping straight in, I could have just used a more suitable material like sort of thicker cardboard or foam. But I am showing you my mistakes, so you don't have to make them. Anyway, on with the walkways. I guess in my head, because the walkways were the simple aspect to this build, I somehow had the urge to completely over-design them and pack them with detail. I wanted cabling running underfoot and with some grating involved somewhere too. And yet, because the actual details were still a bit hazy in my mind, I just decided to begin by giving it some mass. I cut strips of XPS foam and glued these around my walkways. I weighed all this down with some small dumbbells and anything else heavy that I could find. As this was drying, I gave the cardboard packaging a healthy coat of Mod Podge. This not only hardens the cardboard, but also seals it so it will accept paint nicely. Next, I had one of these little push-button LED lights you can buy for cupboards or lofts or that kind of thing. I thought this would be a great base for my core and also add a bit of pizzazz with the light from underneath. I cut some strips of graphics board and glued these around the edge of the light. Next, I cut out lengths of embroidery mesh and used these as the basis for my walkways. Again, a massive waste of time and material, but at the time I didn't know this yet, so it seemed like a good idea at the time. I glued this down with some PVA spread evenly over the surface. And I added a central detail to the walkway with the intention to have the wires running in the channels either side. And while all that was drying, I could now give my hardened cardboard a coat of primer. Nothing fancy, just white primer from a spray can. Once my walkways were dry, I gave the foam a little sand to neaten everything up a little, and Then I reached for my box of old electrical items. Just a tangle of old wires, really. I cut some of these up and glued them into my model. My next idea was to cover these wires with some metal grating. This seemed like a realistic yet functional solution. I had these mesh sheets. I think they were sold as window screens or something like that, but they're perfect for making little miniature fences. I measured and then cut out strips of mesh to glue onto my foam. I used hot glue here as it allowed me to work quickly, and because I have a low temperature setting on my glue gun, I was able to work onto the XPS foam without melting it too much. Slowly things were taking shape, but I found out the mesh blocks too much light, so most of the wires were now hidden. I felt a little deflated at this point because it felt like all the hard work was for nothing. Okay, well, we're here now, so work with it. I glued the two separate elements together and decided my walkways would need some extra support columns. So I turned to one of my favourite solutions for columns, and that's vitamin tubes. Great for this scale and keeps you fit and healthy at the same time. With my fancy new digital measuring tool, I accurately measured the length for some styrene tubes I wanted to add for extra detail. I cut down some styrene tube and slotted these into place. And while I had my styrene box out, I grabbed a few lengths of square tube and cut them to size and added them to my pillars. Anything to change the easily recognisable shape and extra detail is always fun. I still didn't like my walkways very much. I thought a few borders might help make things look a bit better. I cut out more strips of card and glued these down. I've been slowly getting to grips with my new 3D printer and found these cool fans online and printed a few out. I'm still figuring out the whole 3D printing process, but slowly and surely I'm sort of getting there. I needed a way for my miniatures to get up onto the walkways. I toyed around with the idea of stairs or ladders, but eventually settled on ramps, as it just makes balancing the miniatures so much easier. I cut out basic shape from some XPS foam and glued some card to the face of this. I then cut the angles, trimming off a bit at a time until everything fit. I needed a way to fix these to my model, but I also wanted them removable for storage, so I decided to use some magnets. I cut small holes for these to sit into and glued in the magnets. I continued to add a bit more detail to these by adding some more card and some diamond plate sheets that I'd picked up from Green Stuff World. I needed a way to mount my nuclear core to my light, and I had a small clear acrylic rod from a miniature base that I had spare, so I drilled a small hole into the light and then glued this into place. I kept adding more little details, more borders, and also these little bottle tops which will create a stability field to hold my nuclear fusion core in place through far more advanced technology than we know of now. I coated all the exposed card with Mod Podge and then began to add some base coats to my surfaces. I used a brush here rather than my airbrush, as I could get a really nice thick covering coat down in one go. I coated all the metal parts with some dark metallic colour. I also had the idea to expose some of the wires within the walkways, so all that hard work kind of wasn't for nothing after all. I cut a few choice holes and carefully bent back the mesh to reveal the wires underneath. I didn't want this terrain piece to be war-torn or battle damaged as such, but a little light maintenance is fine by me. The metal mesh is really sharp when it's cut, so please be careful if you're using it. I mixed up some grey in my airbrush and gave certain areas a nice even finish and covered up any areas that I'd missed by mistake. I darkened some of the deeper recesses with a light dusting of black, and then hit the areas that I wanted to be glowing with a bit of pure white, creating a nice soft halo. And next I came in with one of my favourite ways to paint, and that is using candy paints. Because I have established a glow with just some white, I can now tint that white with a candy colour. Candy colours are basically a highly pigmented but very transparent paint that explodes with colour over light surfaces, but almost disappears over darker colours. This makes them absolutely brilliant for glow effects. I spray the core side on, so to only get paint on the outer edge of it and keeping some of the white inside. And that pretty much brings me to the end of this build. I had an idea that sparked an urge to build something cool. Little did I know that it would turn into such a huge piece. It's massive. It's completely impractical. It's hard to store. It took way too long. But it looks so cool. And with a bit of creative thinking, you can easily find a cool narrative way to include such a unique piece of terrain. It creates really interesting firing lines and allows your battle to be fought on multiple levels. But overall, it makes me smile. If you'd like to see more videos like this, then you can subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest videos. You can leave a like and let me know what you guys think in the comments. I love hearing all of your feedback and sharing creative ideas. Thank you for watching and enjoy.